Good to see everybody. I've streamed. See if Woody can avoid the whole big audio echo thing as we start up YouTube here. It's nice to see everybody and some new faces too, which is great. A lot of good stuff in the gallery. It's going to be fun to go through and talk about those images. We're good to go?
Yep.
All right. So we're up on YouTube. We're up on Zoom. It's good to see everybody. Welcome back. We've been on quite a big journey. Some of the people here in Zoom and Rick and David and I have been on a rather big adventure with 3 workshops in Yellowstone, the Tetons, and Moab. We're still kind of recuperating from that. I have a pile of gear lying here in the studio behind the camera. Still sorting, putting away, getting to back emails. And we're thinking that next office hours, just to give the kind of news out here, is going to be on the 16th of November. And we're going to do sort of an open Q&A, anything you want to talk about photographic. And we'll also show some images from the road. We'll give you a little slideshow from Yellowstone, the Tetons, and Moab. But we really had a great series of workshops. Lots of different interesting weather, good sunshine, clouds, severe clear when we wanted to do Milky Way right on schedule. We had some fresh snow in the Tetons that really popped the mountains when they came out with a little bit of fall color left. It was a great trip. Rick and David were awesome on it too. What did you guys getting settled back in?
Yeah, I have a room full of equipment too. I'm moving into a new office in a week, and I can't wait because I've got to get all of this equipment out of here so I can move around. So,
nice.
But
David, you getting rested back up?
Trying. I got a big sleep deficit to make up, though.
Well, all I can say, it was great being back out on the road, photographing with friends and learning and being back in those beautiful places. So on that note, do we have any other announcements really to put out? I don't think so right off the bat. Nope. Okay. So the 16th is the next office hours. Woody will get that link back up, hudsonhenry.com/office hours. Leave your questions. We're really going to take questions. It's been a while. And I'm pretty sure that this office hours, we're going to spend a good deal of time going through images. As you can recall, we talked about doing a gallery of your images to run through and look at them, mainly of night sky images, not necessarily, but we got a lot of night sky submissions, kind of in honor of putting out the Milky Way course that I just put out about using a star tracker or star stacking. And you can check out more about that at hudsonhenry.com/Milky Way. But for now, let's just jump in and let's take a look at people's images. Here we are on that gallery page. First one here. Oh, yeah. Actually the case. Everybody's still there, right?
mm-hmm.
Going on.
Yeah,
we've got you guys seeing those messages pop up?
No, it just shows black, says Hudson Henry has started screen sharing. Oh, and he went away.
Uh-oh.
What hand puppet time?
Quick, song and dance, Rick, go.
Da, 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 da. Well, we're clearly rusty. We haven't done an office hours in what, a month, a little bit over a month. Where is Mr. Henry?
Pretty sure it was a black hole.
Yeah, he is gone. Is he trying to get in, Woody?
No.
Wow, he's literally gone.
When's cap on?
See here. Yep. Oh, Gary's showing off. Is that your Sushi lens, Gary? The 105? Oh no. Okay.
He says I'm there on mute. You're not in, Hudson. I don't see you as a person in. He's trying to chat me. He says I see me. you're not on the list, Hudson. That's weird. Well,
We could just stare at each other for a while.
yeah, that'd be good.
So Rick, you getting a new office in your home or are you getting an outside office?
Oh, I have an outside office, but I've got it's a very small office and I've got all of my storage in it. So I'm going to actually use the other office, the new office, for a photo studio and a little bit of storage. So I can feel a little less crowded in my spot. So as you can see behind me, I've got multiple bookshelves. I've got wire shelves. Everything's kind of screwy.
Yeah. New one's close to home.
Yeah. There's Hudson. Yeah, unmute him, Woody.
I do not see him in my list.
He's like coming in and coming out.
Rick.
Yep.
I'm going to make you the host real quick. If you
Okay.
can see him, grab him.
All right.
I noticed a few people were popping on and popping off today, so I don't know if that's a Zoom thing, but there was several people that came on and left and came back. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is a technical issue.
All right. I don't know what's been going on, but like it dropped for a second. It popped back up. I was here. Sorry. I think there's some kind of Zoom issue going on, and I apologize for that to everybody. Let's see if I can share my screen yet again here. Up.
So it says you started screen sharing. There you are.
Hey. All right.
All right.
I'm going to put that over here. All right. Are we there? Does everybody see me?
Yep.
All right. It looks good. Okay, cool. So let's just talk about Glenn's image and get back on track to where we were supposed to be. This is a great composite of the moon and the fighter jets. Really nice color toning, nice sharp image of the jets, nice sharp image of the moon, moody sky background. I think we always talk about composites that the key to good compositing is good base images to start with.
Yeah.
Beyond the masking and detail skills that you need to accomplish it. And this is just several great images put together in a really nice way with consistent toning.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, really nice job, Glenn. Here we've got Suhail. This is it's that kind of classic single Milky Way shot. I could go for a little bit more trees at the base of it. I almost wonder, the classic single Milky Way shot. I often think of it's like, if you're going to capture it without a tracker or without doing stacking technique, like I talked about in the course, you're going to wind up with noise, and then you're going to get a little bit of blur. You're going to get a little bit of star trailing to get enough light into the sensor. And then dealing with that blur is going to give you a little bit of a fuzzy Milky Way, but it's still just beautiful. And it's so much fun to see things, so much brighter and with more detail than you can see with the human eye. I might back off the saturation just a little bit in this one. And again,
I would.
a little bit. Oh, go ahead, Rick.
No, I was going to say, I agree. I think it's a little bit too yellow and a little bit too blue for my taste, but it's a lovely image. It's a really lovely image.
Yeah, exactly. All right, moving on. Jason, this is one of my favorites in the gallery. Really nice image. Do we have notes on this one up, Rick?
Yes. Let's see what he's.
Jason has had a lot of fun with us. Last time we did the Moab workshop, not this year, but 2 years ago, we were out shooting Milky Way in Moab, having just a blast, a delicate arch and balanced rock. I can't wait to get back out there doing this stuff with you, Jason. This is just a lovely foreground image, beautifully processed and captured.
Yeah, he says he shot this with the new 20 millimeter 1.8. Did sort of long exposure to the foreground during the last bit of twilight, then waited for the sliver of moon to go down. And then he shot locked off in the old format of 10 frames at 2500 ISO at 10 seconds each, which he's stacked using Starry Landscape Stacker.
Yeah, the stacking technique. So
I think it
pinpoint.
turned out beautifully.
This is crazy. He said, then as an experiment, I moved back, set up on the move, shoot, move, and shot the Milky Way in a 3-shot pano using a low ISO and long shutter speed. I was at 1.8 and 200 ISO for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Cut out the foreground and place it over the starry landscape or stacker composition of the silhouetted tree to give the branches some color and definition. Extended his canvas and brought in the Milky Way, masking the bottom of it to blend into the light pollution on the horizon.
Nice.
To my surprise, they blended nearly seamlessly in color and tone. He said it was a tough Photoshop job, but a fun experiment.
Wow, that's a lot of work, and it came out really beautifully, Jason. I love it. Nice.
Jason also had a question. We have some people have some questions when with their submissions, and he said sometimes I see strange banding and rings of color in his astrophotos. He's wondering if my night filter may even be contributing to the color shift. He's wondering if you've encountered this and if you have any tricks to even it out, make it less noticeable in post.
Mainly just using hue, saturation, and luminance. I don't think it's the night pollution filter as much as it's just some of the light bouncing around in the ionosphere. I've been reading a few books about astro work, more for people that are doing deep space stuff. And sometimes those weird sort of color shifts, those magentas and green weirdness is really actually present in the ionosphere, and your camera's just picking it up. Now that might get hidden a little bit more by light pollution if you're not using the light pollution filter, but you're probably going to get a fuzzier background. I just find that in general, I'm getting better images with a good light pollution filter, even if there is some of that stuff. And I find often just by using a targeted adjustment tool, say in Lightroom, and tackling hue and saturation locally, you can do a lot about it. That's been my biggest trick with it. It's kind of after the finish edit, going in and just tweaking the color a little bit, just in, sometimes paint it with a brush and just do a little targeted work. I love this foreground, Barry. Nice kind of.
This was shot in the Negev desert in Israel.
Wow.
It's really very cool.
There's not a whole lot of light pollution going on. I might darken this one ridge in the background that looks like it's just a little bit over brightened, and I'm not sure it's contributing that much. But I think that the image is great. There's a nice kind of consistent toning throughout. The Milky Way is wonderful. That foreground's awesome. What a great spot to be out shooting without a lot of light pollution. This foreground ridge is just amazing. Super cool. Great lines in it. I'm sure this is Mobius arch, just looking a different direction than we're used to.
Double arch. This is double arch in Joshua Tree.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know that place.
Yeah, I do know that place. Kind of a different angle on it than we shot it. I'm going to have to look at this again when we get back out there.
Yeah. Yeah, he says this, where are we? Hang on one second. I lost it.
I'm wondering if it's a pano or just a really wide angle.
It is a pano. The foreground is a shot with a 14 to 24, 5 exposures, 15 minutes after sunset. And the sky was pano of 7 tracked exposures.
Right. The only thing I would say about it's a really nice job with both the foreground and the background. The only thing I would say is maybe toning down a little bit of the yellow in the sky. I think it's light pollution here at Joshua Tree. Yeah. But tweaking the hue of it to be a little less mustard, a little bit oranger. Move it from the yellow to the orange spectrum and just tone the saturation of it down a little bit. This is the kind of stuff that happens up in the ionosphere a little bit. Some of these magentas and greens, that just happens. It's real. It's out there. Yeah.
I would also on that one, just sort of, I do a little bit of dodging and burning on the rocks in the foreground. I'd like a little bit more contrast in them,
Yeah, I could agree with that. Darker shadows.
The composition in the foreground.
Yeah. It's a really nice line.
It's a beautiful shot.
Really striking. That's a wall hanger.
Yeah, very much. This one, Bruce, great stars. It doesn't always have to be about the Milky Way. I think the clouds are interesting. My biggest thing I'd say is straighten the horizon. It's always just catches my eye the minute things are crooked. You feel as if you're on the bias a little bit. And I'd probably get rid of the sign in the foreground a little bit. It's kind of an interesting light, but just making sure you've got that horizon straight. That's one thing I used to have to be straightening so many of my images in the past. And then between mirrorless having a little digital leveling aid, which I use all the time handheld, and being on a fluid head that's always set up level the minute I land in a tripod position, it just helps a ton. But if you do have one crooked, it's just good to level it. It pulls the eye down there to the edge and feels out of kilter a little bit. Bruce, I love the idea here. I think you just got to make sure you got the focus tack sharp. You've got the Milky Way in there, you got the stars, but both the lighthouse and the space looks like the focus is just a little bit off, not quite at infinity. Maybe it's a little beyond infinity, which can happen, particularly with autofocus lenses, but it's a really cool idea with the lighthouse, and we've seen Al Akins execute that really, really well with his Florida lighthouse in a gallery recently. So, I just go back out there, do this one again, make sure you get the focus tack sharp. I love this one.
Another one from Joshua Tree, Ocotillo. Yeah. That's a beautiful night shot.
I love this one. This is perfect if you were going to put a little text, say for a magazine insert, the beginning of an article, 2-page spread, and you've got a little text flowing down here. For just straight up display or put on the wall, I'd probably crop in a little bit, make it a little more panoramic, or you could, you've got all kinds of things you could do with it. You could crop this square, you could crop this 4x5, you can crop it 2x3, you can crop it panoramics, but I just love the moon, the planet, and the Ocotillo. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And that gradient's lovely. Beautiful. Kathy, a beautiful composition. I love that hint of the road sort of leading us in with the road fence snaking in kind of sinuously in towards Double Tower. Again, this is one of those, it has the look of a single frame Milky Way where, you're sort of fighting, keeping the stars still and noise.
She says this is actually a separate Milky Way and foreground shot.
Okay. Well, but I mean the Milky Way being shot in sort of a single frame with a little bit of noise and doing noise reduction on the Milky Way. Beautiful, beautiful composition and execution. I just, you might benefit from trying some stacking techniques or a tracker to just get those pinpoint stars in a really enlargeable pinpoint Milky Way. Really nice stuff. I love the silhouette of it. I love how you left it very shadowy with just a hint of what's going on. It still grabs the eye and pulls you right into the Devil's Tower, which is great.
Yeah, that's a great leading line.
It is. It's really, really nice. Again, leading lines, Matt, this pure and the light's pulling us in, and it's fun with the moon right above the light. That's cool stuff.
Yeah, he asked, it's Roanoke Marshes Lighthouse. So, but he asked about, how does he get more detail in the moon? He tried a couple of shots, but all he ever got was a blown out white blob. He wanted to get the orange in the detail, but it never just sort of panned out.
Well, here's the tricky thing, and we talk about this a lot. The moon is lit directly by daylight. It is the equivalent exposure of the Earth in the middle of the day. So if you got a full moon, it's lit directly by daylight. And you're talking so many orders of magnitude brighter than a nightscape. Even if you bracket, it's not going to naturally blend. The only real way to photograph the moon and the Earth, the lit portion of the moon and the Earth together, is when the last sunlight's still striking the Earth on a full moon evening. When that moon rises a half an hour before the sun sets, or sets a half an hour after the sun rises, that moment where it's low in the horizon and they're both lit by the same sun, then your exposure's even, and you can get all the detail on the moon and you get beautiful magic light on the landscape. Your scenes with the moon in blue blue hour, you can get all the detail on the moon, but you're only going to have a silhouette of anything on Earth. You'll have that blue sky and the detail on the moon, but it's going to be silhouettes of the landscape. There's just not a way to get that level of detail in the moon and the foreground without compositing it with two separate, completely different exposures. So
yeah, and it's not an easy composite in most instances.
No, it doesn't look real.
So Matt jumped in, David, and said it's in Manteo, North Carolina, the home of Andy Griffith.
Not so far from you, David.
That's right. It's very compelling, though.
It is. Chris, this one's really the foreground and the figure, I don't know if it's you, are just wonderful. The way that the dunes lit is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do. The only couple comments I would make is I would get in there and darken that ridge in the background and get kind of the blue out of it. Just let that go to black, leave a little detail in here. And then, get in here where you're blowing a couple color channels, but not all three. And you've got red and you've got blue. I would work to desaturate those highlights in the stars, because those blue points and red points just kind of pull me out of the majesty of space. It looks something doesn't quite read right, and that's just a function of, you've got red if green and blue blow, you got blue if red and blue blow. And all that's left is that one channel. And so you can go in and just, decontaminate the highlights, essentially, just desaturate those. You can even paint in desaturation if you need to do it as local adjustments. So
he says
it's a lovely composite too.
Huh?
I said it's a great composite.
It's a great composite. It is.
It is.
Yeah.
What did he say?
That is him.
Oh, very cool. Great self-portrait. You stood really still. Nice one.
And avoided footprints.
Yeah, all of it. This is really nice too. I zapped that one little branch. Great aurora. The stars are nice and pinpoint. I love the foreground. It's a lovely shot. Is this Alaska? It has Alaska.
This is Alaska, yeah. Pioneer, Chugach Mountains and Pioneer Peak outside Palmer, Alaska.
Mm-hmm. I spent time there in the summer.
He said, he asked if you've done any Milky Way shots with the Northern Lights in them. He said, you're not sure how they'll look with 3 or more minute long exposures to bring out the Milky Way.
I have not done the Northern Lights yet. It's on my list. So no.
Yeah.
We're actually talking about some Alaska stuff in the not so distant future. So maybe there'll get to be an opportunity, but this is really cool. I love the whole feel of it. I would just, the one thing I'd say is zapping that little branch up at the top. Not a big deal.
Maybe a little noise reduction. Yeah,
maybe a little noise reduction. This one looks familiar. We got Gary. It's funny, this is at a place where we were in the Brookings workshop not so long ago. Feels like a lifetime ago after 3 workshops back to back. But not so long ago, we had this beautiful reflecting pond just in from the sea. And Milky Way unobstructed out to sea. It looks to me, Gary, like you shot a horizontal image and maybe you shot a vertical Milky Way and then you kind of stretched the Milky Way to fit the horizontal image is what it's feeling like to me in this one. And I think maybe instead just downsizing the foreground to match the Milky Way and making it a taller image might work a little bit better. Rick, do you have any input on that one?
Yeah, no, it looks stretched to me. You don't see the Milky Way looking like that. And I think that's just it. Trying to match a vertical and a horizontal, you want to make sure that you keep the definition of the Milky Way and stretch in another direction. So,
right. And, we had an interesting question from somebody who'd been watching my videos about how to blend the Milky Way in the foreground. And in one of the example files and examples that I gave you and walked through in the Milky Way course, there's one where someone asked, how did you know how to resize the canvas perfectly just off the top of your head? And the answer was that I shot both a vertical and a horizontal with the same camera. and so they're identically sized. And all I had to do was look at, how narrow is the vertical image and size the horizontal image to the same size. It was just a simple look at the canvas to know I just needed to change that dimension on the issue of compositing two different sized images. So this one, Hakan, I think is really compelling with the light shifting out. The blue hour and stars are a wonderful time to be out photographing. It's an interesting image because I think you've got some atmospheric haze or some fog, which looking at all your images of surfers and kite surfers that you're always putting out, it looks like there's a lot of hazy and foggy conditions where you're at. And it's funny because it looks like the light is sort of cutting almost a swath through that, and back behind the city's lighting it. It's interesting. I might back off on the blue just a little bit. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Rick, David?
I would say that the same thing. I mean, the sort of the scope of the light, the way that it just sort of puts this almost harsh line of blue, it's quite distracting to me.
I believe I would crop in from the right.
Yeah.
About halfway and then zap that cord out, that cable.
Yeah. I think I would do that too.
Maybe about halfway between the pole and the lighthouse.
Mm-hmm.
Or even here to kind of keep. Yeah. Anyhow.
Yeah. I think with some local adjustments in the sky, you could sort of even out the blue a bit to make it feel less segmented.
There's just this kind of a line here that goes from purple to blue. And I think you should work to soften that edge a little bit, like Rick is saying. And I don't disagree with David either. I personally would probably try to crop it where you have the water meeting the trees right here, and then you could zap that line really easily. It's good stuff, Hakan. This one's pretty crazy. Jamie has this really old piece of Americana here, and the obvious Milky Way pano.
This is at the Harmony Borax Works in Death Valley.
Yeah,
he says it was his first attempt at a Milky Way pano, Z6 with the 20 millimeter 1.8.
That lens and camera combo is amazing for night work. And it's a great pano. One thing I absolutely love are these silhouettes of the old borax work up in the corner and the bit of fence leading up toward them. Because you don't have the foreground quite sharp and in focus, just the edge of it feels less focused than say in here. I might crop in just a little. If I move my cursor out of here, you can see it gets a little fuzzy down close to you because you're focused at infinity. And I might just zap a little bit of the foreground and get even more of a panoramic feel to it. It's a great shot though. Great series of shots.
No, I think it's outstanding.
Yeah, this is another one where I think I would darken the sort of foreground a bit, with a brush. Agreed. Just sort of go in and just sort of, reduce the sort of presence of it. You really want that old vehicle and the sky behind it, and just sort of lead people up into it with a little bit more darkness in the foreground.
Well, right where the watermark is over here, that's a nice tone for the foreground, and there's a little bit repeated over here, and I think if you just darkened it all with a local adjustment, that could fix it too. I think that's absolutely right. This is quite the Milky Way, Jim. It's interesting. The clouds reflected in the surface. The one thing about this is, you don't have exactly the same reflection going on with the Milky Way on the surface. And I might work in the composite to blend a bit more of that reflection into the lake. But it's a great capture. I love the silhouette reflection, and those lights on the shore of the lake is really, really nice. I think there's a little bit of haloing going on in the tree in the compositing that you might back off just a little bit. But a nice Milky Way.
Very nice.
This one, John, I feel like maybe this is shot in daylight or a little bit bright still in twilight. You feel that kind of differential light on the trees You see where there's like some of the last sunlight playing on that ridge on the trees. So you got bright highlights and dark shadows playing both on the ridges and the trees. And I think shooting your foreground a little later into the blue hour when it's really just evenly lit by the last afterglow of light in the atmosphere, and you don't have that kind of harsh lighting on it, it's going to blend into a Milky Way shot a little more realistically. It feels just a bit bright in the foreground to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you might be able to, in this instance, back off an exposure a bit, to try and reduce that. But the sunlight really does kind of give it away in this instance. So,
especially on that foreground ridge. So, and it's a nice Milky Way capture. I'd also increase contrast and back off the blue a bit in space, but a really nice capture. This line of dunes leading into the frame, Jonathan, is awesome. This caught my eye the minute. It just leads you right into the Milky Way. I'd back off your green saturation a smidge, and I'd even darken this ridge back here a little tiny bit, just so you don't have a bit of that kind of soft shadow going in. Let that fall to a dark silhouette in the background. You got a little bit of light playing on the ridge up above. The only thing is that green, I'd just back that off a bit.
Yeah. He asks, when do you consider the Milky Way season over? He said he's heard October, but looking at photo pills, he still sees times in which it's visible in November.
The galactic core is all we're talking about. This section right here.
Right.
It becomes invisible up north in the winter, and it becomes invisible in the south in Australia in the summer, and it in their summer or in their our summer. But you still see the line of the Milky Way moving through space. You shouldn't stop photographing stars, and you still see a good portion of the galaxy. And if you're down towards the equator, it really becomes more year round. You wind up just seeing the arc of it. Those panoramas in the lower latitudes work out really well with kind of an arc over your whole subject if you time it right. It totally depends on where you are and how much you're willing to sacrifice of sort of that core of the galaxy. I think the Milky Way is relatively visible all year round to one extent or another. And the other thing is that photographing stars without the Milky Way is also just wonderful. One of the night images that we got in this gallery that I love the most is that blue hour shot with just the sliver moon and the star, or the planet. There's so much to do. Rick and I submitted images towards the end of this that we're going to look at, and mine has nothing to do with the Milky Way. It's just a constellation shot. This is Julie Boyle.
This
Love
is
that
Bungles in Western Australia. She said this was her first serious attempt at a night shoot while on holiday.
Well, you did good. I would back off the purple and blue a little bit. That's a tendency, though. That's personal preference. And as I look at all of my older images, as I was getting into this stuff, I look at it now with a different eye and back off the saturation of almost everything I did even 5 years ago. Probably I'll be backing off the saturation of what I do now in another 5 years. Yeah. So I back that off a little bit. I think, as you get doing this more and more, keep practicing it, keep working with those compositions. I really like this composition. I think if you look into some of the stuff like I talk about in my course, doing really long, low ISO foreground, really long, low ISO on a star tracker, or stacked images. We're going to show a stacked image from one of our Brookings photo workshop participants who didn't have a tracker and who really disbelieved us that anything was going to come of the stacking exercise that we did. And you'll see that it was pretty awesome when we get to that image. There's a lot you can do without buying any additional equipment. And you'll be able to get more pinpoint stars, less noise, less blurring from doing noise reduction. And it just gets more and more fun the more you get into it.
Yeah.
But this is a great start. Great start. A place I'd love to go visit. This one's really an interesting night shot, Keith.
This is actually not a night shot. He says this was a night sky image, but my interpretation of one humbly submitted. He made this with his infrared camera during midday of a tree in the neighborhood backlit by sun.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, the backlight is amazing. I don't know what the front light's coming from. something.
Yeah, it looks like it is coming from something, but there might be some reflected light, or maybe it's, he doesn't say anything about that.
It's I just feel like it's a neural network. I love the structure. I love the structure of it. It works for me, and the backlight's just amazing. So that makes sense. It's infrared. Cool.
Yeah, don't make me have to buy an infrared camera now.
He asked an interesting question.
Okay, let's back up.
Maybe not. Hang on one second. Undo. He said, once you've championed the technical challenges of recording the night sky and the galactic core, what differentiates an artistic image in your mind?
Well, I think it's a lot about the foreground and blending the two, and any good image, the lines leading you through the frame, the choice of what elements go into the scene. We've seen, I go back, I look at Jason Ward's shot of the tree in the river and the lines of that river leading us into the frame, and just the beautiful way that he captured that foreground. And it's clearly night, and yet all the details there, clear and crisp and smooth. And we talked about, I can't remember who did it, but the image of the sliver moon and the planet. There are wonderful examples in here where it's an eye-catching image. It's not just a good image of the night sky. It's it's putting it all together to where it's a compelling image that draws you in and makes you think.
Yeah, I would agree. The ones that I have the most trouble with are the ones where the Milky Way was clearly shot on one night and the foreground was shot somewhere else at a different time. It's hard to get them that they feel right. When you look at Jason's image, for example, Jason looked at that foreground scene, thought about where the Milky Way was going to be, and worked to make those two together in harmony. That's what sort of elevates it above, a shot of the Milky Way, with some foreground.
It's like, we'll get to the image that I'm submitting later. I loved the foreground of this lake in Yellowstone when we were there. There was an angle I loved the foreground, and then the Milky Way was at a different angle. And I took both images and I thought about blending them, but it wasn't natural. And the constellations above that section of the lake that I loved were beautiful. So I left it at that. It wouldn't have been the right angle and it just wouldn't have felt right. This one's really cool by our good friend Ken Muller, who we were able to spend time in both Yellowstone and Moab with. This is Double Arch, one of our favorite places to get in and photograph. Really nicely lit.
It's a beautiful composition too. It's a little different from many of the ones that we shot. From down below, looking up into it, well lit. I love the shadows. The Milky Way, I might back off the blue just a touch. And again, this is one where, if you're working with the tracker or stacking, you'll just have a little bit cleaner, more pinpoint vision of the space. But this is a great single shot Milky Way. Yep.
Yeah, very nice.
This one's crazy by Matt.
So this is 10 image pano for the foreground taken at blue hour and 10 stacked images for the Milky Way.
That makes
shot
sense.
with his D750 and a Samyang 14mm lens.
The one thing that distracts me in this, the foreground pano is just amazing, and this crazy old Star Wars robot looking tower, the medieval building with the crazy tiles. It's all gorgeous, but there's this sort of haze around this section here that kind of cuts into the Milky Way instead of it continuing through. And there's just a halo here. And I'm not sure, maybe going back and looking at how to blend that a little less abruptly, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, it definitely grabs your eye when you're looking at the scene, that sort of halo on the right.
Yeah.
Does he say where that is?
Does not. Le Ventoux by night.
No, it's a cool spot. I'd love to go photograph it with you.
It's cool. Yeah, it's quite an amazing pano. It really is.
Yeah. This is another one where I just back off the saturation a bit, but and tone down the lighting in the foreground a little bit. I know there's a little light paint going on here. I would tone that down because it just feels, especially right in through here and on the grass, is a little bright. And then I back off our saturation and maybe try a light pollution filter might do some good help in this one too. Whether you get, the natural night that I've been using from Case that I love, or the old Hoya color intensifying filter, or lots of people are making really good ones these days. I'm really been enjoying the Case natural night filters. I feel like putting them on, taking them off, there hasn't been a situation shooting the night sky where I'm not happier with it on. Raleigh, great Halloween themed image. I often think when I've spent enough time down in Mexico and Michoacan and even run workshops down there for Dia de Muertos, I always think of the kind of celebration of ancestors associated with the holiday and people decorating graveyards and spending time thinking about their ancestors. And so this fits into that whole theme really well with the Milky Way, a really nice natural Milky Way here. The sky is actually great. The one thing I would say is potentially just making sure that we had that last headstone, a little room around it in the foreground. It cuts right down into the edge of the frame. So it feels compressed down there a little bit.
This one was shot in Spain. He said the Spanish celebrate death and provide festive battery-powered decorations which fade near dawn. So,
like it.
Pretty wild. Yep.
Pretty wild. This is a really nice Milky Way lighthouse shot by Reno. The Milky Way is great, just a beam straight up. And I love what's going on with the lighthouse light. I don't know what's going on with it. It's clearly not flashing out. There's just that dull glow down toward the bottom, but it looks otherworldly and really cool.
It is, yeah.
And I think that red light down around the buildings and just the silhouette of it all, it's just really nice. Great job. Robert, this one, it feels to me like there's a graduated filter or something going right here across the middle where it's so intensely bright here at the core and also where there's a bit of light pollution. And it feels like there's a little bit of a color shift in that same spot where it's going just a little more saturated towards the gold up through space. I would back off that gold brown saturation a little in space. I don't mind it in the foreground. But a nicely light painted foreground. I like the bench looking out on it. I would work to blend the sky a little cleaner at this transition point right through here.
Good composition though.
Good composition.
Those were stacked in Starry Landscape Stacker. And so it was only a second attempt at shooting a Milky Way image. So, well,
really, really good job. The composition and scene are super cool. It makes you just want to sit back and watch space.
Yeah.
I like it. Steve, a really nice, clean Milky Way here. I back off the saturation just a touch in these kind of magentas that are playing right here. Easily done. You can even just paint a little desaturation in there. Yeah. But a great Milky Way. I love the line of trees and the horizon there. Just has this nice feel of a rural night scene. Lovely. Nice pinpoint stars too. Good job. We're not talking about Milky Way stew, but it's a great sun star.
Yep, that's near Escalante, Great Staircase National Monument.
Really cool.
Yep, bracketed.
Go ahead.
No, it's a very simple composition, but it works beautifully.
It does. I love this triangle. Oops, what did I just do? I bounced out and I hit a hotkey. We can get back to this one quick. Sorry. My fault. There we go. I love this this triangle of the horizon down here in the bottom right corner. Very cool. All right, this one is the Headless Lighthouse. You there, Rick?
Yeah, sorry, I had to sneeze. He doesn't have he doesn't have any information other than shot at with the 20 millimeter 1.8.
It almost
It's
looks
fascinating.
It is fascinating because it almost looks as if the head of the lighthouse was lifted and set over there's a little something going on that I don't fully understand, and I'm wondering if it's an issue with the lens, maybe, where the center and right of the frame look really sharp, and it's a little blurred on the left. Like, I wonder, did we see what lens Stuart's using on this?
20 millimeter 1.8.
Huh. I would just check it, especially at 1.8. Shoot a brick wall perfectly lined up in front of you. You're not at an oblique angle to it, just head on, wide open, and see if you're sharp on the left side of your lens, because it looks a little out of focus here.
Yeah.
Cool shot.
Stuart says that lighthouse was decommissioned in 1935. So
they took the head off it. They really decommissioned it. And this one by Rob is it the space station?
It's the International Space Station. Yep. He figured out a time using stellarium and clear outside to find out when the space station would pass over the Big Dipper.
Nice. Well, it's pretty cool. I love that. I love the pinpoint stars. I would say that there's a little haloing going on. You might just work on that one edit on the edge of the trees, but otherwise a very cool image. I like the last little vestige of blue hour going on there. And the Big Dipper is really nice. I love the constellations in the blue hour. This one, Al showed us some really awesome images, and I just recently did the ATS on the space launch. The sky in this is stellar. It's a bit of blue hour. The light from beneath on these clouds just is ethereal. I love the pattern and shape of them. Great timing on the shot, and the way that, even blurred, that planet's popping through there, whether it's Jupiter or Venus. Amazing. I would crop up a little bit, maybe almost where that line with me, just a little below there, where that light hits that bit of grass. I don't feel like we need the foreground in front of that.
Yeah, it definitely gets in the way. I mean, it draws your eye down to it. So I just, like you say, crop a bit from the bottom, but it's a wonderful shot.
Really great shot, Al.
Yeah.
This feels like a Jimi Hendrix album circa. It's just wild and crazy, Ben.
Careful now.
Yeah, finally getting one of those flashbacks promised from so long ago. This is personally, it's a very psychedelic edit. Crazy sky. The clouds are really cool. I love the silhouette of the towers out there. I even think the foreground differential kind of light painting plays into the scene. I personally back the saturation off globally, but to each their own. Yeah. And again, this is the kind of thing that I was unbelievably giddy and gleeful to get in the days of the D700 when I first realized you could be getting stars in Milky Way at a high ISO setting, and it was just wow! Look what you can see that you can't see with the human eye. Now I'm always working to minimize those star trails. You can see these are starting to trail from a long exposure. They're not pinpoints. They're little dashed lines, particularly out at the edges. And you got a lot of noise from it being a high ISO. And those are things that are eminently avoidable using the MPF rule for shutter speed and, doing stacking capture or grabbing a star tracker like we talk about in the Milky Way course. But really, really cool capture. It's beautiful. It's fun. And that almost plays into the whole psychedelic feel of it too. It's like everything's moving. It works. This one, Bill, Iceland, awesome aurora shot. I could use a little more headroom over the top of the cross, but that's nitpicky. It's really cool. Great sky. Just wonderful.
I'd love it a little less centered up, but maybe a little bit more on the right side of the frame or the left side of the frame, but it's a really cool shot.
I would probably go for a little more. It's hard. It's like the church has a face and you kind of want to put it facing into the frame, but the aurora is so strong to the left, maybe walking a little bit to the right and putting the church a little more to the left, but very cool. I mean, it's an awesome shot. We're nitpicking. Great aurora capture. This one's just fun, Carlos. You know, the night sky. I'm guessing that's you guys looking up into it. It's fun. Great snapshotty kind of capture. Nice job holding still. In Colombia. Good stuff. Olin, this is, I don't mind when the clouds play through under the Milky Way. I think it lends to some interesting stuff. I could use a little less foreground of the lake probably.
Yeah.
But very cool. I think the lights in the trees are nice. This is just wickedly sharp blue hour shot. Everything's sharp, foreground to background. Really nice, Koos. This is, I love working in the blue hour. Yeah. And, if you've got human lights out there, embrace it. I don't know if you lit these rocks to match. If you did a fabulous job. And the stone is just so cool. It's like the smoothness of the sky, the perfect reflection in the water, and the angularity and sharpness of the stones play really well in this image. I like it.
It's a beautiful composition.
Striking.
We got Darren doing moving car from moving car. We were talking a little bit about this before we took off. That's Darren's dad. You want to talk any about it, Darren?
I've been doing a lot of car slow pan practice. And so when I learned my dad had brought his Corvette up, and I'm like, wait, we've got you in the Corvette and we've got the truck and we have somebody to drive that. Yeah, let's go for a drive and do a car to car shot. It's something I haven't really done a ton of. So it's just getting the practice in. So this is 40th of a second, f11 at 70 millimeters on the Z6.
Darren, what time of day is it?
That was about 11 o'clock, but it is a really shaded section of road. So I would have liked to have a little bit less cloud cover that day, but I didn't get it. So
that's fun stuff, man. I've done a little bit of that in days working with off-road accessory companies, ripping across the Alvord Desert or the Oregon Dunes, sitting in the back of a truck shooting cars. It's not easy, and it is kind of fun. You want to be strapped in. Dave, it was so
fun. Morning.
That was a beautiful morning. Dave and I were right next to each other this morning, and when the sun bloomed over the top of that at Mammoth Hot Springs, I haven't seen this shot before. We didn't show it during the workshop. That sliver moon is amazing, man. And the way that you did the long exposure capture, the steam coming off the hot springs is just fabulous. I love the two photographers down here in the foreground. It's a beautiful shot, man. The way you framed the vegetation against the reflecting water, it's just wonderful.
And that's a tough place to shoot. You'd think it would be easy with all those trees, but it's kind of hard to find that right composition. And this one just really works.
Yeah, it really, I didn't even see that scene when we were there.
I know. When I looked at this in the gallery, I was like, oh, wow, Dave. Wonderful. And Dave and Al are good buddies. It was nice to see great shots from both of you guys in the gallery. We missed you in Moab. Oh, I love this moon, and the line of the foreground, David, is lovely coming in. Great clouds, and the clouds leading to stars. You get that atmospheric disturbance, kind of very, very cool. It's a cool scene. A little bit of clear sky showing us those stars, and the moon just makes it for me. I love this shot. This is really nice.
It's a beautiful shot.
The colors just subtle and love. It's just sense of place. Really nice work, man. Fred, we've been here recently been here. This is cool. Again, it's got that feel of a single frame Milky Way, the sky capture. And it's fun to do that stuff. Again, I'd urge you to go out and try some stacking. You don't need any special equipment for that, or even trying a stacker like the Move Shoot Move, just to get the more pinpoint space with less noise that you need to reduce. But fun stuff. I love the foreground here. This one, crazy stuff, Gary. This is White Pocket, right?
Yes, I believe so.
And the tree is fantastic. and I'm often talking about reduced saturation. I would back the blue and purple saturation just a little bit, but I think it's dreamy and it really goes with the foreground. I'd just take it a skosh back, that lavender, but really dreamy, nice composition. That tree in the center makes the Milky Way in the center work. It's cool.
Love the foreground.
Yeah, exactly.
Also reminds me of Checkerboard Mesa and Zion.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good call. And here's another spot we just were for a spectacular sunset with our workshop just what, a week ago. Delicate Arch.
Jack just said that he knows it's not a night sky shot, but you had recommended some locations to go in Moab and said that he should hump it up to Delicate Arch, and he just want to let you know he did it, and here's a shot.
I love it. He did good. Beautiful clear sky day. This would be the kind of day you want to be up there for the Milky Way if there's no moon. Perfect clear sky. This one's a really fun composition, Jim. I would back the purple saturation and blue saturation down just a little bit, but I love the composition in the lifeguard tower and the signage, your light painting on it or the city lights playing on it work really well in the composition. I think the long shot of the Milky Way works with it. It's nice.
Yep.
Fun stuff. Another familiar scene, John. This is I just love the angle of the Milky Way coming down in. It feels as if your sky is a little out of focus. The stars just aren't quite sharp, so you could work on that. If you're shooting with mirrorless, try just auto focusing. If you've got a low light autofocus setting on your camera, we're finding that the Sonys, the Nikons, and the Canons all have no problem. The latest versions and low light autofocus pinpoint single servo, just nailing a bright star or planet. It's pretty amazing. I'm sure also, this is probably some city light or ship light out in the distance. You could focus on that too, because it's so bright. Beautiful scene though. And the foreground's just so beautifully captured, so sharp and nice detail. Definitely night. Looks great. Great composition. Speaking of great compositions, you don't have to have the Milky Way to make a starry scene spectacular. The grasses in this place so well. That tree is haunting, and there's enough shadow repetition of it out here in the distance that pulls us to the left with the mountains balancing to the right. Just fantastic composition here. I love it. I would zap some of these little satellite tracers going through here, but other than that, it's just fabulous. Oh, this is our good friend Ken, Time-Lapse Ken, as he was known in Patagonia. I did a lot of time-lapse on this trip, Ken. You would have been in good hands with me. There were just beautiful clouds moving through, especially in the Tetons. But, Ken sent me this image, and I commented, good composition. He did a nice job silhouetting that daylight shot of the deer. And he told me, no, those deer were at night, and they just paused and stared at him silhouette and stayed so still. He was able to capture that foreground in darkness, which is really cool. There's just a hint of their faces of the mule deer. Great Milky Way, great composition. I would zap this one satellite flowing through, but very, very cool, man. Love it. A Neowise shot, Kevin. This looks like Three Sisters. Beautiful last remnant gradient, and those clouds just make it surreal. The stars are great in there. Neowise throwing its double tail out. This is a fantastic position for a great shot. I love this one. You talk about what makes a good shot. This is one where Kevin clearly thought long and hard about where he wanted to be and where Neowise was going to be, and got in a position not easy to get to at the right time, and then executed really well. And just that silhouette works so well to me. This little snowfield gives us the detail that we need. And then I just love that gradient. This is great stuff.
Yeah, I like that too.
And this one, Mount St. Helens, Mark, who we just got to spend some fun time with in Yellowstone. I am a great admirer of the things you're doing, Mark, and I can't wait to get back out shooting with you. This is just a fantastic night shot of Mount St. Helens. It's beautiful. The whole composition.
It's a 5-shot pano, he says.
It's beautiful.
It's lovely. Yeah. Light is
really
great.
is. The moon is mysterious through that kind of veil of cloud. It's wonderful. And it lights everything evenly. Beautiful. A nice sandy, great aurora composition here. I'm guessing that's a boat in the foreground.
It certainly looks like a boat. It's in
Certainly looks like
northern
a boat.
Quebec at Nunavut.
Wow.
Nunavut,
Great.
excuse me.
Great sky. Fantastic sky.
Love it.
This looks, Steve, like the Yellowstone Gate that we were just out near, the old wall. Nice stars in it. You know, that's probably lit.
Yes,
near
it was lit by he said a ranger stopped by the stop sign and light painted the arch for him.
Fun stuff. Fun stuff.
I might lighten it or darken the arch in the foreground just a bit, just to.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just to balance it a little bit more.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, me too.
This one is, Richard, it's not a night sky image, but it's such a lovely reflection. And the dead grass in the foreground really, really works here.
Yeah. It helps frame the shot nicely.
Yeah. And you got just the right amount of it. It's beautiful composition and exposure. Lovely. A lovely, peaceful scene. Love it. Terry, this is the shot. This is a shot I foretold earlier. I remember, yes. Terry was skeptical as she looked at the back of her camera, seeing nothing but sort of black as we had her exercising the star stacking technique that I talk about in the Milky Way course. And she's like, there's nothing on my camera. And we're like, put those images together and you'll come up with a beautiful Milky Way image. And this is what stacking gets you. You see those pinpoint stars. You're not creating trails. You're shooting very slow shutter speed, a higher ISO, or very faster shutter speed than normal, 10 seconds or less, bunch of frames, compositing those in the star stacking software to add together all of that light and average out the noise. And you get a clean, bright, pinpoint Milky Way image. This is at a spectacular spot that we found near the Brookings workshop, really close to where we were staying, to go out and do Milky Way at night. Fun stuff. Really great image, Terry. Super, super happy to see it. This is a fun one, Ramon, of the Peter Iredale on the Oregon coast. I've taken workshops out here. You get a lot of light pollution. We've got Astoria up here to the north, and there's probably a ship out to sea here. But great stars and fun foreground. I love the lines leading into it.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday, that this is one of those instances where framing something in the center of the scene is not always what you want to do, but this composition works really well because of those lines that sort of lead you in, and the sort of line of the horizon with that hill on the right rather. It's a beautiful image. Makes me want to go back to the coast.
Yeah,
right,
it does. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Crazy, Robert. It has this sort of surreal look. I've never seen one of these river markers or what, or coastal
whatever
markers.
it is.
Whatever it is, it looks alien. And I would do a little burning and dodging here just to darken it a little bit. It pulls me so hard away from what's going on in the Milky Way. And again, I think a little noise reduction might help in the sky here a bit, but it's super interesting composition. I just darken that guy a little bit. And again, Carl, this is Whale's Head. This is a really cool rock that Carl was with us again on the Brookings workshop. And I love this composition, man. I feel like, I don't know if you're working in Photoshop with the selection. If you are, you might hit that decontaminate edge button feature. If you're working in on one, you might take the chisel tool and just work off a little bit of this fringing going on the edge of the rock where there's a bit of a bright transition. That's the one thing I'd say about it. It's great. Love that composition. Charlie, I was with Charlie I think it's been a couple years ago now. We were scouting for a Brookings workshop before we'd ever run one. And Charlie being our Port Orford local and good friend on the Southern coast, good buddy, so to speak. We were out there and the moon was setting, and this is at Secret Beach. And it's such a cool composition. Charlie's been working on this one for a while, and I love it. Nice job, man. Electric Milky Way from Torsten here. This is very surreal. The toning is interesting. I would back off the red. There's just a little bit of red. It's probably from the other channel blowing up in here. Kind of grabs my attention and pulls it there. Like there's light that doesn't quite fit. And I would probably zap that bright glowing patch. Maybe these over here too, just because they pull me down to the edge and distract me a little bit. But very interesting kind of edit on the Milky Way there. Electric. Okay, here is yet another whale's head image. This is who's this? This is Rick, right?
Mine. Yeah,
it's beautiful. Beautiful.
And that one actually is a single shot. That's not a composite. No.
Did you use you didn't use the tracker?
There's no tracker used in all. No.
Wow.
Of all the shots that I got that trip to Brookings workshop, this was the one that I liked the most.
That's lovely. This is with your 14-1.8.
Yep.
Yeah, that's such a cool lens. That's one Sony lens I covet. It's very, very cool. I love how soft it feels. I mean, it's sharp, but it has this soft feel. The color is really, really nice in it.
It's got a wonderful mood.
Doesn't it, though? Yeah. It really does. And having both that reflection of the coastline to the south and Whale's Head straight out to sea are really, really cool. Nice job, man. That's awesome. Yeah. And I threw this one in from our Yellowstone workshop just to say, I shot the Milky Way. The Milky Way was off to the left. And I shot this as kind of a foreground because I liked the reflection on the water and the Big Dipper out there. And then when I looked at it, I like this shot of the stars. It just has this feeling of being out there. Yeah. It's so kind of pure. And, also it gives us a good look at the Big Dipper right here and how that front edge of the Big Dipper points right up to the North Star, which is the only bright one out there. It's even more noticeable during blue hour when it's really just the constellations popping up. So it works to kind of illustrate what we're talking about. When you're using a tracker, you line up on that North Star, that bright star that the leading edge points to. That was a beautiful night out there. It's Swan Lake. Swan Lake in Yellowstone. It was great. And that rounds it out. I'm going to stop my screen share and pop back into the meeting here. So good job, everybody. It was fun to see all those images. And everybody, I'm really proud of this community and the work that you're all doing. And also just what great attention to detail you have with following instructions, submitting the right sized images, putting the right content out there, only submitting one, the whole thing. Really, really, really fun to go through your images and look at them. I feel like this group is doing great stuff. So,
all right. Well, we've gone over as we thought we might do. So, next office hours is the 16th of November.
16th of November.
We'll take your questions.
I want to thank really quickly Rick and David for being so awesome on the workshop, as well as everyone, the workshops, as well as everyone who participated in them. It was really a fantastic, exhausting, but beautiful, fun, learning-filled time. And I just want to thank everybody involved. So that was great. And it was, again, fun to get through all your images. And Sandy, I'm glad to see you recuperating there at home. So, all right, everybody, until the 16th.
Yep. Have fun, everybody. Be well. Keep shooting.
Have a great rest of the week. Good work, everyone.